All right. So how many of you worry day to day about the stability of you or your loved ones in this country? Since we are living in California, I think it's safe to assume that we at least all know somebody to worry about. So because of this, I decided to research the various ways to obtain citizenship. I found through the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service webpage the various ways to get one. The easiest way that I found was to become a permanent resident. So who is a permanent resident? A resident is someone who applies for a green card, and through a book I found in the Ohlone Library database, How to Get a Green Card, written by Barry Lewis and Gasson, they state that permanent resident holders are allowed to stay in the U.S. and are allowed to travel outside of the U.S. so long as they continue to show proof of intent to stay in the U.S. forever. So residents are able to apply to become citizenships after 5 years. So who is a citizen? A citizen is anyone who was either born in the U.S. or any of its territories, or someone who goes through the naturalization process. The naturalization process is, I also found another book that talks about, sorry, I'm reading it, the title. It's Deconstructing Naturalization Ceremonies as Public Spectacle of Citizenship, written by Robin Harper, and he states that naturalization remains the principal formal point between non-citizen and citizens. Like other states' naturalization processes, the U.S. has developed an elaborate bureaucratic application intended to weed out the undesirables. This includes a patchwork of application submission, language and civic exams, background checks, interviews, and payment of fees, and taking an oath in a naturalization ceremonies. So where do we start? So the first step is to apply for a green card, and this can take anywhere between 7 and 33 months depending on if there are any errors in your paperwork. If you fall under any of these 8 different categories, it's my presentation, you are able to apply. If not, you can also fill out petitions, but these are the ones that take longer years, which many people do not get approved. So if you are trying to get this done as fast as possible, your best bet is to apply for a green card. You can apply, I'm going to quickly go through the 8 different ways. The first one is through family. If you have a parent, spouse, or sibling over the age of 21 who is either a legal resident or a citizen, you can apply through them. Next is through employment. If you have any extraordinary abilities, such as if you're a professor, a doctor, any of those things, you are able to apply to work here in the U.S., or you could also be a seasonal worker, such as a farm worker. Next is special immigrant, and these are people that are trying to work in nonprofit organizations, some abuse victims, and other members of the media. Next is refugee or asylum. After going through the process of getting approved as either refugee or asylum seeker, if you get approved after having that title for a year, you can apply to be a permanent resident, which gives you a path to citizenship. Next is human trafficking. There are 2 different types of visas that you can obtain, and once you obtain these visas, Visa T or Visa U, you are able to also apply for citizenship. Next is abuse. Victims of abuse of U.S. citizens, or people are also able to apply if they come from another country and their spouse is abusing them. They could seek protection here. There are also various countries that have acts protecting them, such as Haiti and Cuba. Any women or children who want to apply, they can. Next is other categories. This includes the lottery program, which is the people that I said in the beginning have to fill out petitions. This is the one subsection. It's very hard for them to get it this way. Next is other abused victims, and there's also many different acts for specific countries that would allow them to apply. Next was also if you're American Indian born in Canada, you must have 50% American blood, you could also apply. And the last one is called registry, which means you have to be continuously residing in the US since January 1st of 1972. So you would have to be here continuously, not leaving the country. You'd be here illegally for about 47 years before being able to apply. So next step, you fall under one of these 8 subsections. Your next step is to gather $1,070 to submit your application with all your paperwork, and this is on top of all your lawyer fees. And you will submit your application, and you'll be waiting anywhere between 6 months and a year for acceptance. Once you are accepted, the waiting game continues. You have to be a permanent resident for at least 5 years before you apply to become a U.S. citizen. It becomes 3 if you're married, if your spouse is a U.S. citizen, so it gets reduced by 2 years. After waiting the 2 years, the whole process kind of goes over again. You submit a new application, you go through biometrics again, which is a background check, fingerprint scannings, and you submit another $750 to be considered for citizenship. Both of those fees, if you do not get accepted, you lose the money, you do not get it back. So after that, you'll be waiting. After paying the $750 for the application, you'll be waiting about 14 more months to know if you are accepted to the interview process of citizenship. And during that portion, you also take different exams. It's a very basic history, U.S. history test, and you're also questioned on your application. They're very basic, just so they know that you're able to understand English. And if you pass this exam, if you fail this exam, you only get one more chance, and then your application is denied if you fail both times. If you pass, then you will be again waiting. There's a ceremony 4 times a year for the citizenship swearing, and if all goes well, you will become a U.S. citizen. So I want to end with a quote from George Washington. I had always hoped that this land might become a safe and agreeable asylum to the virtuous and persecuted part of mankind, to whatever nation they might belong. Thank you.